And welcome back to Attorneys on Call. So let's say you've been seriously injured in an automobile accident or a truck accident, and you got the Whitley Law Firm representing you, and you can't get to a settlement. And so you know this case is going to go to trial. Ann Oschner and Whitney Butcher from the law firm are in studio with us today. And ladies, you are part of the Whitley Law Firm trial team. Tell us a little bit about the process of preparation for that, and when you've made that determination that, okay, we can't settle this case, we've talked to the client, we know we have to go to trial, what happens then?
Sure. So the first thing, you start a lawsuit by filing a complaint. And so, if there's a lot of prep that goes into that, but, from day one, we have to act like we're going to and get it ready to go into a courtroom. And so a lot of investigation and a lot of background work goes into that. Gathering of evidence is what is involved with that.
Investigation in what way? Give me an example of what that would look like.
Sure. Well, you want to take that one?
Sure. So we actually have an in-house investigator. So as soon as we sign a case up and we know who we're dealing with, we try and do full criminal background reports, asset checks, where this person has lived, as much as we can find out about them, just because it may be useful. If you're dealing with a wrongful death case or a case where someone's got a brain injury and they're going to have a $1 million life care plan to keep them alive, basically, the stakes are really high and you need to do a lot of work on the front end. So we'll try and find things out about the possible defendant. We'll find things out from the investigating trooper. That's one of the first things we do, is try and get in touch with law enforcement who may have been to the scene, any eyewitnesses who may have actually witnessed the wreck or witnessed what happened immediately following the wreck. We'll want to get in touch with them and take statements and get interviews from what they saw or what they recall happening. Those are some of the investigative tasks that we take on immediately.
Well, I would assume that the insurance companies have those investigators working on these things as well, right?
Exactly, exactly. So it's important that you have someone on your side trying to find out exactly what happened.
Just because the insurance companies have them doesn't mean that they're sharing that information with us.
Okay.
We recently worked on a case involving a truck driver. And so truck drivers are CDL holders.
Okay.
And they,
which is a commercial driver's license.
Commercial driver's license that is heavily regulated by federal rules and regulations, and they have to be qualified in certain ways. And so our investigation revealed some past criminal conduct on this particular person's behalf that may have disqualified him from even being able to operate the commercial motor vehicle that was involved in the wreck. I mean, and so that's of paramount importance to our civil lawsuit, to show that this truck driver shouldn't have been on the road to begin with.
Well, and to show that his employer perhaps had some negligence in the case, even though they weren't driving the truck. If the truck driver had this criminal history, they should have known about it and shouldn't have had him on the road either.
Yeah, well, you would think that they would have done a background check, and you'd find these things in a background check, right?
Correct. I mean, if we were able to find them, so the argument goes, so should the employer.
So should the employer.
Correct.
Right. Those investigators, are they like retired police officers or detectives, or what?
It depends. We have some in-house that work for us that have a couple different backgrounds, but in larger cases, we may need to have someone on the ground where the wreck happened.
Okay.
So we've got offices in Kinston, New Bern, and Raleigh. If a wreck happened in Charlotte, we may need someone local, and that could be a retired police detective or someone who's used to finding things out.
And I know this is one reason why you have the resources at Whitley Law Firm, that if you're in this situation where you need that, you're going to get it, right?
Absolutely.
And once again, anytime you can call the 800 number on your screen or go to whitleylawfirm.com. We do have live operators standing by to take your call. Leave your information. An attorney will be getting back to you promptly. Another area that I really want to talk about with you both is focus groups. First off, explain what is a focus group, and then how do you use these when you're preparing for a trial?
Sure. So focus groups are an important part of what we do to get a case ready for trial. And so in a trial setting, again, it's going to be a jury of 12. So a focus group is kind of like a mock trial, but it would be different in that while we're telling them, presenting the evidence that might be presented at a trial or giving them the facts that they would learn during the trial, we can kind of stop, hit the pause button, and get feedback from these 12 non-lawyers, kind of like pretend jurors, and find out, what do they think about that? What questions do they have? What blanks, do we need to fill in? It is extremely helpful, because lawyers, I think, we get focused on lawyer facts. We know what the law requires, and we think, oh, if we, just fill in the lawyer facts, we'll be fine. Whereas average lay people might see the same evidence and say, well, but that's not important. I want to know more about something else that was not even on our radar screen. And so that's what a focus group is.
Okay, so they're just kind of like regular people that would be, they're not sitting on the jury, and they're not attorneys, so they're just kind of folks from everyday life.
Sure, just 10 or 15 people in whatever case or whatever county the case is pending. So if there's a wreck that happens in Wake County, we'll get 10 or 15 people from Raleigh. They'll come together one evening after work, and we'll present the basic facts of the case. Here's how this wreck happened. What do you want to know more about? What's important to you? And it's more of a discussion. So we're presenting our case to them, but like Ann said, we're getting feedback back. Did the defendant say he was sorry? Did the defendant have a family? Did the defendant stay at the scene and try and help? These are things that when we've got our lawyer hats on, we may not have been as tuned into as regular people who are going to decide the case if it goes to trial in the jury box.
So this would be a very valuable tool to have.
Extremely valuable, because like I said, this is the closest thing to, what jurors might think. And so, like I said, it's like being able to lift the lid and peer into the jury box as to how a potential jury would view the case.
And it's why having resources and having a law firm with resources is so important, because these types of things are expensive. Doing a focus group, having an accident reconstructionist expert, having a human factors expert to really look into the case and give you an idea of why did this person not see the injured party? Why did this person run through the stoplight? Those are all important factors.
Can you give us an example of a focus group situation you were in, and an interesting question or two that you got, or share a real life example?
Sure. So we just did a focus group last week about a case that we're going to be taking to trial soon. And in that particular case, our client was treated by, her physician. And so we've got the medical records from that treating physician and other providers. And the defense in that case just hired an expert to review just the medical records and to come up with an opinion about whether our client's injuries were or were not related to the wreck. And so this records review doc has never laid hands on our client, yet is going to state an opinion about our client's injuries. And so what we wanted to know from the focus group was whether they would give the testimony the same weight as the treating physician.
I got
and
you.
Also, this records review doc is charging $600 an hour for his time.
Wow.
And I wanted to know, are you going to give them the same weight, and how does this make you feel that he's getting paid for his opinions? And come to find out, the focus group put way more weight on the treating physician, and so that was, very helpful to us and gave us confidence going forward, about how that might be received by a jury.
I would think so. I think when someone hears that $600 an hour and the doctor doesn't even know the person.
Well, the one comment I heard from the focus group was, that's highway robbery.
Really?
Nobody gets paid $600. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Okay. What other things do you do in terms of preparation for trial? And I think these are really important for folks to know that are watching the program, because they don't understand what goes into all this. And there are people out there right now considering hiring an attorney, and this is just really great free information.
Sure. So one of the types of mass torts that we've talked about over the past couple years are the metal-on-metal hip implants.
Sure.
And there have been lawsuits for years about those. There's several different major manufacturers that have failed, but you basically have a metal hip replacement. The metal component pieces rub together, release metal ions in the body, and it has an extreme reaction, metallosis, and oftentimes a revision surgery. So one of the important things that you look for in those cases is an orthopedic doctor who can look at the faulty hip replacement after it's taken out, or who can look at the medical records in the patient and explain what it's like to have metallosis or metal poisoning going on in the body, what it's like for an implant like that to actually break down in the body, and how that can impact the patient's life. So there you're dealing with an orthopedic doctor who's an expert and who can give invaluable testimony for your client's case. But that's another sort of example of what we would do to prepare.
So similar to what Bob has talked about in the past about experts around a automobile automobile crash, but in this case, for the hip, the metal on metal, you bring in an expert medical person that can talk about the damages.
Exactly. Talk about the damages and explain in layperson terms how this could fail and how that failure could impact the patient. So having an initial hip replacement surgery is bad enough, but by all accounts, revising that again is 100 times worse. It's a longer recovery time, it's more painful, and it's more difficult for the patient to go through. So being able to hear that from Whitney the lawyer is one thing. Hearing it from an orthopedic surgeon who does this day in and day out, it really goes a long way to advocating for the patient.
This is great information. We so appreciate it. But coming up next, Ben Whitley's going to be back in studio. We're going to talk about what happens when you have a workers' compensation claim, the first 30 days of that claim and the last 30 days. Back after this.